And so we're going to record, and this will be available for us to watch after the fact. I hand it over now to my wonderful colleague, Veronica.
Cool, thank you. So if everyone could type in the chat, your first and last name is here, if you'd like to be part of this public record. It just gives us an easy way to track who came and maybe where you're from, also where you're calling from. Our next two meetups, I have the dates for you, and I will send this in an email, but just so you know, it will be on, Monday, June 1st. Sorry, guys. All right, Monday, June 1st at 9 p.m. Eastern in Boston, which is 7 p.m. Central. 7 p.m. Mountain Time, and I will figure out the math for the other time zones later. And then June 15th is another Monday at back to this time, 1:30 p.m. Eastern or 11:30 Mountain, and whatever time it is right now for you, that's the time. I will also thank you to Joy Meyer, who suggested making a list of online classes that are currently happening that people could sign up for. So I'll also send out a document of the things we've compiled, and feel free to let us know other things that should be on that list. Okay, if you can all keep sharing resources with us as you find them, also keep suggesting 5-minute presentations or topics that you want to discuss. You can nominate yourself, you can nominate someone else. It just helps us know what the needs are for discussions at these groups. Without further ado, I'm going to introduce our 3 guests. So Dawn Pratzen is going to start, and she's going to do a movement warm-up so you can all get ready to move. And then she's going to share how she works with movement in her online dance class. Loretta Foy is leading us in a short ribbon exercise, so make sure you have a ribbon to work with. And she'll share how she's working with her students as well. So we'll give Dawn and Loretta 10 minutes because they had this like combo of like activity and then share what they did with it. And then Elena, I'm so sorry, Elena, I never asked how to say your last name. Would you mind saying your last name for us?
No problem. It's Arauz. It's like a house, but with a rolled R. Arauz.
Arauz, thank you. So welcome to Elena. She is a stage director and on faculty at Princeton in the theater department. And she's going to talk about 2 things. One is how to use the whole body in the Zoom setting, and also how do you convey a sense of beauty and storytelling when the audio and video quality is just mediocre. So I will hand it over to our presenters. You may start, and we'll just go right in order.
Greetings, everyone. I'm going to share a little bit of Tai Chi, and then I'm going to show you some and talk about my online dance group, which I've had for 3 years now. And we had a performance last May using Zoom, and I have a short clip of that performance just to show you some possible ways you could integrate Zoom in a performance. It was really interesting and fun. So my Tai Chi warm-up, you can sit or stand. Standing is probably preferable. You can do the same thing sitting. I'm not a Tai Chi master, but I did study Kung Fu and Tai Chi really intensely back in the late 70s and early 80s. In fact, I have my Tai Chi pants from them on today. We'll begin by twisting the spine just gently, letting your arms be relaxed and heavy. Letting your tension leave your body. Feel your vertical axis around which you're gently rotating. And then let your arms just take a little, slow it down a little bit. Standing straight and easy, feet relaxed on the floor, or if you're sitting, sit bones relaxed on the floor. A little body check, feel your feet, feel your ankles, feel your calves, feel your knees, feel your thighs, your hips, your belly, your torso. This is kind of quick. Your shoulders, your neck. Imagine that you have a little string pulling the top of your head up, so that gravity doesn't knock you down, but you can let what needs to drop, drop, and what needs to stay strong and straight, stay strong and straight. Exercise 1. Bring up your arms, wrists relaxed, and drop them down. Keep doing that. And I will talk us through arms up and down. This is my take on Tai Chi. As we're doing this, we are aware of our feet relaxed, our sits bones relaxed. Our breath is integrating with our movement. We are not rushing to get through the exercise. We are in the moment. We are not thinking about ending it. I like to breathe in as I come up and breathe out as I go down. I like to do a little demi-plie as I come up and a little extension of my knees as I go down. And you can modify this so that it becomes a whole body experience, but it's kind of subtle. Second exercise, palms up. Bring it into your chest, turn the palms out, and just gently push away. Do this a few times with the same idea. You can take a little demi-plie and then straighten your legs on the exhale. Tai Chi means the grand ultimate energy. And my take on it is that we are connecting our energy, our chi, our grand ultimate energy, with the energy of the universe. Or with the other people in Zoom. If you want to come a little closer, you can kind of watch other people and kind of think about them as you push your hands away. Ooh, that's nice. A few times. We'll go back to the first exercise. Shake it out for a minute. Just do whatever you need to do to kind of loosen up, recuperate. Find the tension spots and let it go. Easy breath. Then find your stance, your feet relaxed, your spine lifted straight easily. Those easy 3 curves in your spine or 4 curves in your spine. And exercise 1, lifting up the hands and dropping them down. There's a sense of resistance, that the air is thick. And as you're pressing, you're kind of pushing resistance. There's a little resistance in the air, but you don't push that resistance with any muscular effort. It gets pushed from your breath and from your imaginary chi coming from your center, from your Tantian, which is just below your navel. Exercise 2, palms up, in and push away. Not rushing to get through the exercise, but experiencing the grand ultimate now. Exercise 3, arms out to the side, all the way up, and then you press down in front of your body as you plie. So it's kind of the opposite. You stretch up as the arms come out and up, breathing in if you like, and exhaling out as the arms press down. And sometimes I like to say, I'm smoothing my aura. I'm smoothing my aura. And if you'd like to enjoy, this goes to my dance group online, pay attention to the other boxes. Connect your movement and your Tantian with the other boxes in the room. We don't have to necessarily all be together. This is our last exercise for today. Right hand palm is down. Left hand palm is up. They meet together and they push away. And you reverse that. left hand or right hand, whatever it is, left one hand palm is down, other hand palm is up. They meet together and they push away. Back to the first one, palm down, palm up. They meet together, they push away. And palm down, palm up. They meet together and they push away. We're just going to end with a little hand improvisation. Come closer to the mat, and this is just a little hand improvisation. The hands express the energy out through the fingertips. Play with your box, play with each other. And come to a stillness. Very nice. I've grown to actually like these little boxes, although I haven't been teaching in them, and I imagine if I taught for several hours a day, I would go nuts. But this dance online group that I'm a part of, we've been meeting once a month for 3 years, and we started out as, and we continue to use movement and text. These are 8 or 9 dancers from across the continent who have known each other, some of whom have known each other for years. And it started out with some of us looking at our dance shelves, dance book shelves, all the books we bought about dance over the years that we never read. So we said, let's find a way to read these books, and we'll use movement as a tool of inquiry to get into the text. So that's what we've been, and we take turns leading, and we rotate people. Sometimes we vote on texts, and we have a list of books for the year. We've done different things. We've done a lot of dance texts. We've used literature. We've used anthropology. We've done some earth things. And it's been really an amazing, supportive, creative. And we actually went to the National Dance Education Organization conference in San Diego and gave a presentation about our work. And then last May, I did a performance here in Gloucester at the studio that I'm a resident artist in. And one of the pieces on the program was this group. And I brought
Dawn, just so you know, 1 minute.
How much? Okay, good.
One.
So I'm going to show you quickly a very short excerpt. Can I share my screen with everyone?
Absolutely.
Great.
And then make sure you do computer sound also.
I think I did that already. I hope that continues. So here's just a little example of how this piece started as we go. There's a big white sheet hanging down with the people on Zoom. I'm playing a little sound score. There's 2 of us in the space because one of us lives in Jersey City, so she came down. And so the audience got to see both the screen and the dancers in real time working on the screen. Oh wait, let me make it bigger. That's right, that's what I have to do. Hold on a second. I can't get over there. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Minimize this. Hello, minimize. And then we did a little audience participation, which I'll fast forward to, if I can. Yes, a little audience hand dance. The whole evening had a lot of audience participations. It kind of culminated in the audience joining in the hand dance. And there's a reading, there's a text reading.
Is none other than our soul, that being which
And then it finally culminated in everyone getting up and dancing with us, which was kind of fun. That's the end of it. The sound quality is terrible, but that's that, and that's the
Thank
end.
you so much. Thank you, Dawn.
You're welcome.
Loretta?
Hi, everyone. I'm Loretta Foy. Thank you, Veronica and Stephen, for inviting me to share some of my work. So I run a dance program at a college in New Jersey. I also teach eurythmics, but I also have a company called the Espressione Corporea Project, which does workshops and classes in Espressione Corporea, which I actually learned, started my learning in Rome with Suzanne Martinet, who's a Delcroze diplome. Then came back here and did more research, and I've incorporated my experiences of my modern dance, Barteniev, Feldenkrais. I am a Tai Chi master. I've studied for 20 years, and so that also comes into my work, in addition to the Delcroze studies that I've had. So, Dawn, thank you so much, because this is a great transition from your hand dance into my hand dance. So this, what I'd like to share with you is a ribbon play, ribbon experiment, ribbon exercise that I've used with visual artists, creative writers, musicians, dancers, and then hopefully I'll show you, if we have time, a little clip of how I applied that into a dance with my Modern One students a few years ago. So what you will need for this, though, is some type of ribbon or string. If you have it, you don't need to have it in your hands right now. You can if you want. So I thought we would just kind of start with just finding a spot that's comfortable for you, whether you're sitting or standing. You can be in contact with the ribbon or not. Just take a moment and be still in whatever shape that you're in. And just notice how easily are you breathing right now? And where have you decided to look, to place your focus? And what might be the caption for you as a sculpture in this moment in time? What does your body feel like it's saying right now? And so now I'd like you to shift your relationship into using this prop, using this ribbon as an object to play with. Again, you can sit, you can stand, whichever you'd like to do. You can look at it or not. Just feel different ways that you might want to approach how you relate to the ribbon, blowing on it, twisting it, wrapping it. Just taking the time to really experiment with how you affect the ribbon and how it affects you. Maybe crumbling it, let it lead you. Is it tight, loose? Is it curled or uncurled? Where's your tempo? What's the speed of what you're doing? Can you flop it? Can you crumple it? Attach it to your body? Just playing freely and shifting at whatever tempo is pleasurable for you, from one position to another, from one movement to another. Just a little dance for yourself and the ribbon. Beautiful. You can take a moment and even look in your boxes and see it's really beautiful to watch. Just allow yourself to be in dialogue with this ribbon, creating a relationship with it. What is it to you? What's the flavor of this relationship? And as you play, find a few moments, a few movements that resonate with you, maybe 5 or 6 that you can repeat and create a short phrase. 5, 6, 7, even 8 different movements, so that you're creating a phrase that you can replicate and do over and over. So maybe one movement and then the next and then the next, and just creating a phrase for yourself that you can continuously repeat from beginning to end, and then go back, beginning to end, so that you feel comfortable doing this phrase with your ribbon. And as you repeat it, spend a few moments really understanding how the movements feel. What is the amount of force you need to perform them? What must your body parts or body do to initiate and sustain these movements? Where is your focus on this repetitive phrase that you've now created? Really fine-tuning your attention to detail, the speed of each individual moment, the dynamics. So basically, you're memorizing a phrase and you're understanding the flow of that dialogue. Beautiful. So now I'm going to ask you to put down the ribbon. And I'm going to ask you to do that phrase, replicate that phrase without the ribbon, and give it the same clarity that you had when you had the ribbon. The same focus, so you can begin the same attention to detail, the same awareness, the same energy. Try to change as little as possible. Beautiful. And as you're doing this, what do you notice? What do you notice about your focus? About how you use your awareness? About where your attention is? And then finding a way to bring it to a close, finding a shape that is pleasurable to you to end, as if the ribbon were still there, and finding that moment of focus with you and the ribbon to finish. Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you. So that's the exercise. So that's the process of the exercise, and basically it's an exploration. If we were to move further with this, with music, I would then have introduced a vocal score attached to that phrase. So I would ask my musician students to find a way to make sounds, kind of a bruitage moment with that, so that they're creating a score with it. We've done it, I make my own score, or I make a score for someone else, or one person does the movement and the group makes the score. So there's lots of different ways musically. I've worked with visual artists with this, and we've translated it into artwork. And I also I did a workshop for my faculty at the college, science and humanities people, and this is how I started the workshop from their chairs. And so this was rather interesting because they had never experienced this before, and it was really an exercise in attention to detail and observation skills, which I think for us as artists, observation is so important to have, and how we look at things with a different eye.
Loretta, 1 minute.
Yep. So what I wanted to share with you, I'm going to share my screen, share computer sound, optimize video. Let me just do this first. I'll get this going up. Okay. Is that? Oh, wait a second. Zoom is not allowing me to share my screen.
Hold on, working on that.
Yeah, give us a second.
Yeah.
We can go.
Okay. Let me.
That's funny. It says it's allowed.
Try again.
Yeah, I'm going to try again. And desktop. Let me see. It says open system preferences. That's very strange. Yeah. Huh.
Why don't we move on and you can email it to Stephen and I, and then we'll try to share it.
Yeah, okay. Or I'll try it on my other computer. That's fine. I have 2 computers down here. So, okay.
Thank you, Loretta. Thank
Sure.
you so very much.
Much.
Elena, we are ready for you.
That's great. Hi, everyone. My name is Elena Arauz. And when this sort of lockdown all began, the thing as both a theater and opera director and choreographer, as well as a theater educator teaching college kids at Princeton, one of the things, my first sort of job for myself was, what is theater online? You know, performance, as we all know, is about gathering of people. And we often say, and we are very proud of the fact that we get to breathe together, and breathing together is somehow a political social act. And then it seems like both of those great core value systems have been taken away from us. We can't breathe together because nobody wants anyone's breath. We're scared of each other's breath, and we aren't allowed to gather. And what I started to realize as I was trying to make pieces with these ideas in mind about how do we still gather and how do we still breathe together, I realized, of course, that's the problem with rehearsing or making of any kind, or lessons, as I watch my son's music lessons, as I watch my own martial arts classes that are now online, is how do we continue to gather and breathe? So the first things I started to do was to make some pieces. I'm going to show you just a few seconds of 3 tiny little pieces that I made. And I wanted to use simple technologies that allow an audience to be there and present. So Zoom was the first one I worked with. I've also been working with Amazon Chime, which is much better audio than video. It's what I direct for Audible, and Audible uses Amazon Chime. So I highly recommend it. And then of course there's a bunch of very advanced coding that need a lot of computer coding work for musicians, and a lot of electronic music uses these other programs, which we can talk about. And what I realized is I wanted to put limitations upon myself. It wanted to be something that an audience can experience. I wanted to only use simple technology. So I'm not adding fancy microphones or fancy speakers, not fancy design. I wanted to use old-fashioned theater techniques. I was looking specifically at what kind of theater worked best in 2 dimensions. So I'm starting to think about the design of Baroque opera. I'm starting to think about puppetry and shadow puppetry. You know, we try to take a 3-dimensional art form and smash it in 2 dimensions. And what was so great, and Don, what you were talking about was we are forced now back into this proscenium frame, right? We've done so much as innovative theater artists to say, like, I'm gonna break the frame and break the 4th wall, and I'm gonna, you know, work with the audience, and suddenly we're forced back into it. And so I started with some of these pieces that I'm gonna share with you, just a couple seconds of each before we start talking about rehearsal, the rehearsal room. So first off, this is goes back to Baroque opera. This is nothing but my Zoom camera on my not so great laptop, cardboard painted, and the real sky. So, and it's just like many minutes of how the light works on an ocean. And one of the things that I started to realize was, if I can't play with other people, with my collaborators, with my audience, what I can do is I can play with the lights, and I can play with the sounds of my neighborhood. So I started to realize that as I started to explore nature. I went into this one. Can you see the screen okay?
Yes.
So this is when I started to use
We
like,
can't see the second one. We just see the ocean wave.
okay.
You have to switch your window.
Capture, and then I'm gonna do this one. Okay. So this one was playing with, again, real nature, but with this puppet house, and created this whole sort of almost narrative arc with simple movement, simple light, and the sounds of nature. And again, I started to think like, wow, I'm starting to respond to all the birds chirping, or when the birds fight with each other. And so they became, in a kind of sense, a new kind of collaborator. And a whole sort of dialogue happens as this whole thing sort of catches on fire. And then I was like, okay, well, what other technologies do I have? There's so few. So I made this on my Ring doorbell. If you know about Ring doorbells, they're the doorbells that let you see what's happening in front of your house, but you can also record. And so this is the first one that I used with text. And I took some text from Chekhov, from Masha's Chekhov. I took this old puppet I had from the Czech Republic, and I created this thing about Masha missing parties. And so I started to think about, you know, these simple techniques, and who can I and what can I collaborate with? So I'm gonna stop the screen. Now I want to talk a little bit about what I've learned, and I hope that just by listing a bunch of little techniques, we can get a conversation started, and maybe this will energize some ideas for you. And certainly you guys have already had a lot of similar ideas, I'm sure, and maybe better ones, but I thought this would be a good way for us to go. You know, we talk so much about, and it seems like in the work that you guys do, is that you're working within guidelines that are set by the leader, right? In the same way that a piece of theater is set by the guidelines from a librettist or a playwright or a composer or the director. And now suddenly we have new guidelines. And so I'm trying to take those limitations of working on Zoom as something that allows us to innovate as opposed to just freak me out. And at the same time, I really believe that if I can keep a joyous, fun working room, then I can have a joyous, fun performance for audiences to see. And of course, one of the biggest limitations is that it's really hard to see the whole body. It's really hard to keep an eye on as a leader trying to create choreography about what the choreography is. Sometimes you can see just the head up, sometimes you can see just the head down, sometimes the angle is terrible. And so that's one limitation. Of course, there's also the limitation of space. I work with, at Princeton, students who their only private space is in their parents' car. And so they can only meet in their parents' car when their parents are not using it. I have another student who the only private place that she has is her bed. And that's the only place she can take class. So she sits in her bed all day long, and she does all of our choreography for our piece together in bed. So how is it that
Elena, just so you know, 1 more minute.
Great. How can we make that sort of equity? And then of course, you know, there's the self-consciousness that comes in from just people watching you in video from terrible angles. And so here's the list of things that I've been exploring. I think it's really helpful when the leader in the room expresses their breath so that it's vocalized, so that we can hear it, so that we don't have to explain breath so much. So for example, I've learned this from my martial arts teacher. He doesn't just breathe, he'll say like, so I immediately know exactly how to follow. Of course, we have to make sure that doesn't take tension away. The other horrible thing is when a leader keeps interrupting the class. So I've started to create, and I learned this from a colleague, these little cards that tell people like, great job, keep going. Because inevitably, even when people are in their own world, they always look back at the screen. They always look at the leader. I try to divide up sections. How can we maybe just work with the upper body? How can we just work with the upper body, the lower body? I also ask sometimes, do all of the choreography that we've now talked about, but put it just in your face. So everything we've been doing with our whole body, let's just see it in your face. What is fast movement? What is big movement? What is small movement? How can we, of course, practice stillness? Because the one thing, as we all know, being on Zoom all day long is the complete opposite of a practice of stillness. And so what is stillness? One of the things that I have found that my students enjoy so much is at a later time, they can take some of the work we've been doing, not during the class, and they make a video of it and then send it to me. And it's been such a joyous thing for them to say, like, look, I got it, even though you couldn't tell because I was in my bed. And oftentimes what I find is they do it outside. So again, this like idea of going back to communing with nature, and they get so excited about being able to show that off. So I ask them to rehearse whatever we're doing in Zoom outside, barefoot if they can, or different ways that they can experience outside. I've asked students to do the choreography by using their keyboard. I've also asked them to create chat poetry about, so they're just responding really, really quickly because of course chat works so fast. So how can they just be writing about the movement that we're doing just as fast as they possibly can? And then I ask them, of course, to not look at the screen sometimes, to even shut it off, to turn away from it so that they're not constantly feeling that self-consciousness. And then I ask them to imagine the movement, just like sit and be still and imagine it. Don't even try to do it. Just like think about what you're doing, think about what we learned together. And I find that that makes them more successful later when they want to send me a video of everything that they've done to show me how much abandon they've been able to find in it. And then,
Elena, thank you so
yeah,
much. And
no
I-
problem.
You don't
Thank
mind me interrupting. We just want to leave some time for questions, and then you can feel free to chime in as people have a discussion about all of our presenters. So there was a question I saw up here from Isabel. This is the exercise that Loretta did about ribbons. Can it be implemented with other objects? Loretta, we'd love to hear your thoughts about that.
Yeah,
And maybe you're back also to share.
I've used newspaper as well for this exercise. If you use newspaper, I would recommend using it in a language other than what the students are used to, so they don't end up using it as if they're reading it. Because it's an object, it's not an actual newspaper. So anything that allows for different kinds of movement, I think would be a helpful thing. That's why I think a ribbon is so great, because you can make it small, you can make it big, you can twist it around, and newspaper has that too. So yeah, I would say any object that allows for movement, or objects. You can have two people do two different objects. I think that would be great too. Yeah. Yeah. And Veronica, I do have the video if you want to.
Yeah, that'd be great. Let's maybe do like 30 seconds so we can see your students' work.
Let me see if I can. So hopefully this, okay. Okay, no, it's not. For whatever reason, it is not, it just keeps asking me to share. Can you see it now?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right, so. So this is without the ribbon. And then I'll fast forward it just a little so you can see the actual. There we go. So this is the finished product. And I'm gonna fade it there. And that's it. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, so that was a modern, those are students who had never danced before, which is really kind of cool. Yeah, that was my modern one class. And the piece was called Where We Are Now. And yeah, and the music's by Motown. Nice motet by Motown.
Thank you. Are there other questions? You can either type them in the chat or you wave at us and we'll call on you. Or comments.
Marlene, You gotta unmute, Marlene. Almost, bottom left. All right, maybe while Marlene's looking for her unmute, is there anyone else who has a comment? Something to share? I just wanted to say, looking at Elena's talk, this idea of the shared breath, I think is absolutely both one of the most critical things that I think I've wanted, to focus on for years, and one of the things that I'm most sad about losing in this current time period. And I think every time I find myself on the verge of true depression out of the virus, it seems to loop back to these ideas of the shared experience. And I'm just, I'm just so eager to try to find some way to get, to get any of that back. I used to describe to administrators sometimes, or to parent groups sometimes. I've spent a lot of years as a choral director, and we would get into some situation where there would be parents or administrators in the room, and I would try to find opportunity to explain to them that we're doing more, so much more, in fact, than just making pretty sounds together. And I think a lot of the general public thinks choirs make pretty sounds. But I said, do you realize this group of 80 teenagers have to breathe as one in order to be able to even just begin what we're going to do? Before we're even permitted a sound, we have to have that shared intimate breath. And just to try to get them to understand what the actual task of performing together is. And so I just really appreciated Elena's focus on the breath and looking for ways that we might, continue to, to solve that in this space. Marlene, it looks like you're unmuted.
Yes. Thank you so much for your presentations. It brought to my mind that as an inner city school teacher, I must get the students immediately engaged in a very healthy way. And I gave out a piece of paper to everyone and asked them to produce as many sounds as possible from a piece of paper. They were instantly engaged and the results were remarkable, but that's just from a piece of paper, just blowing, crumpling, stepping on it, etc., etc. So this really nourishes this type of creativity, this particular conference. I loved it. Thank you.
Thank you. Monique, do you want to ask your question out loud?
All right. Thank you for letting me just look in. I'm a Eurythmics, aficionado, but I teach violin online. It is painful, really painful with our young students. The younger, the more painful. And so I just love the idea of interacting with nature in some way. And can you imagine any way that we could do that with a child with a violin or other instrument in hand, outdoors in some meaningful way, to give them an assignment of some sort?
Can I just jump in with a thought or an idea that's sort of, I think, could be made with a violin in a way? One of the things that I've been asking my students is to find performance in everyday life. So my students who are currently in New York City, I've been asking them to listen to these 7 o'clock clapping and cheering moments for the health workers. And of course, that in and of itself is a musical experience. I've been asking my movement actor people to watch how their parents move, watch how the people who are around them. I do a lot of work with Irving Goffman's idea about performance in public places. And so I ask students to watch who walks by in their windows and what do they learn about how people, when they know they're being watched, how do people act and move? And then I ask them to somehow implement them and those sounds and that movement in the work that they then bring to what would be my class. And I wonder if there's a way that a student with a violin, when they're not, practicing notes, or like beautiful performance, if they're creating with their instrument the sounds that they hear in nature, the sounds that they hear from their parents, from the dishwasher, from the washing machine, from the keyboard as they're typing away all day on their classes. Just a thought.
I'll chime in as well. Monique and I are actually our colleagues at Carnegie Mellon, but we are one of the things that I'm considering for fall when it appears that we'll likely be online again. Is again more techniques to get away from the screen. This group discussed this at our last meetup of the difference between having to be completely screen based versus only audio, and we were comparing Heather Gell's experience with radio versus television instruction. And so I'm going to spend some of this summer thinking about what would be a Eurythmics podcast. That is, what would be an audio only asynchronous class? And it would not be my only, I can't imagine it's going to be my primary vehicle, but all of a sudden we actually have a way and an excuse to maybe do some work in the woods. For years, the joke with my university students, they'll say, oh, it's such a beautiful day. Can't we take Eurythmics outside? And I always would say, well, if you start, you get the piano out there and I'll join you. And then we laugh. One of the things that has prohibited us from taking the class outside has been the piano, but really the bigger thing is that intimacy part. Again, the ability to hear and feel jointly. Any times I've tried to take a hand drum outside and we're just in public, the acoustics of open air make it so hard for everyone to feel deeply that it just always, to me, just has been really difficult, and mostly I haven't done it. But if the option now is headphones, and they're sort of being led through a process, I think there's maybe some way for that. So I don't know, Monique, if that gets you any closer, but there might be a way that they could hear through a headphone some kind of instruction that would then push them forward.
Thank you to all of you.
I saw
Nicole?
hands from Adriana and then Nicole, maybe?
Okay, Adriana?
Yeah, thank you so much. It's so inspiring. I just took notes forever because I got so many ideas from you. Thank you very much. Amazing idea. Wonderful artists. Two things. One, I did teach in the park, Eurythmics in the park. So it was in the time of boombox. So we put some batteries in a huge boombox, and I put batteries in the keyboard, and we did have Eurythmics in the park because students wanted to have Eurythmics in the park, and it was very interesting. It's just a thought and a question, is that in the moment when I am in the space and I move on my own, I'm talking to students, any age, and I'm not looking at the screen anymore. And what I see around me is the bag with clothes in a corner and my shoes from 3 days in the other one and my unmade bed. And I'm moving around. What do I do? I mean, it's extremely uninspiring to move like this. As long as I'm looking at the box and I see colors and other people and so forth, I'm still engaged. But once I am only see that thing around me, that's going to be, killing the experience. If you can go outside and move in the park or with the people, great, it's in the nature. But how can we help the students, the parents in the future, because that's going to take time to create a space in which when I move around and I look around myself, I'm not going to be distracted by all the awful stuff in my room and my socks and whatever is there. And because then the experience is already gone.
So are you just saying we need to clean our rooms?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm very visual on myself, and I think that it's very important in order to, in all the process in which we educate the parents and the students, we educate them how to enhance their experiences, to connect the laptop to a big TV screen instead of staring in a phone, yes, to enhance the experience, to have better audio, but that is going to take time until we really educate the parents and the students how to enhance their own experience. We enhance ours, but they have to do that too. So that were a couple of ideas that, thank you very much.
Thank you, Adriana. Nicole?
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I forgot to raise my hand.
No, it's okay.
Just to talk to Monique, if Monique is still here. Hi, Monique.
Hi, Nicole.
Uh, as someone else who has been teaching string instruments online via Zoom this semester, yeah, I feel your pain more than I can tell you. It occurs to me that something that could be really interesting is to look at pieces, and there are pieces, as you know, ranging from children's songs all the way up through, sonatas by great composers that are entitled, spring, summer, the lark, all of these sort of nature themes. And it would be interesting to sort of say, well, these are some things that some composers heard. Why don't you take a listen to those and then go outside and let's see what you hear. And can you find a way to show those things that are your local spring and summer noises, whether they are lawnmowers and sparrows or, whatever is happening. And then to say, how could I make those sounds? And then how could I use those sounds on the violin to make a little piece out of them? So like what, how would that work? Do I want to just keep hearing this bird song all the time? Or is it kind of cool to have that alternating with some other thing? And what would that kind of piece look like in movement? And what would come out of that? So I wonder if there's something that we could do with that would both be, here's a piece of composed music that you're studying. Now let's do your version of it that's based on improvisation and being in your natural environment. And what can we learn from each of those things by putting them next to one another?
Super. Thank you, Nicole. We have Joy who has her hand up, and then we're really even slightly over our time. So we're gonna let Joy say hi, and then we're gonna try to wrap up here.
Actually, could I just make my speech about
Yes,
emails
please.
first? Okay, so in case people have to leave, if you didn't get an email directly from me, that means you're not on the mailing list yet. So if you could type your email in the chat or send me a private chat message with your email if you want to be up to date on future meetings. Joy, go ahead.
Hi, I just want to connect with what Stephen has said, and I could not, unfortunately, not join the previous meeting because it was 3 o'clock South African time. But I'm shared with Veronica because I'm doing PhD research regarding, well, Dalcroze eurythmics. I don't have any formal eurythmics qualifications, so I have to be careful about what term I use. But I'm trying to see its implications in community music settings in South Africa. But so I've been engaging with a lot with the literature, and I shared with Veronica a very interesting article that Dalcroze wrote back in the day about Dalcroze eurythmics and broadcasting, and he was actually very against it. He was for the, as Stephen said, that doing it together, and it's very interesting how, like, even though we have this technology, like it's just really interesting how, like, I wonder sometimes what he would have said, if he was in this situation, what would he have done, so it's interesting to look back and now actually realize, but we actually have no choice but to use everything we've got. So I found that very interesting, and especially like if I think about somebody like Heather Gall, like even though she did those radio broadcasts, I mean, she was such a, she still put up her community concert at the end, and I do agree, Stephen, it is the social part that I think a lot of us miss, and even if it's not Dalcroze eurythmics, even like my colleagues and I we're struggling, and I think it's just such a I think and I actually wrote about it because we were writing about our experiences. I think this online community, don't know if I'm making any sense, but I just want to also say express my gratitude for this online community, because it does, like, I think these are one of the the greatest things. It's forming this community, even though we're on different continents, I think that's amazing. And So yeah, I wonder what Valkyries would have said.
Well,
Thank you.
Joy, thank you. You'll have to go back and listen to meetup number 6, where Sandra Nash talked a little bit about Jacques Dalcroze's reaction to Ann Driver teaching on the radio, and then his different, where he claimed to hate it, and his different opinion about Heather Gell teaching on the radio, where all of a sudden he seemed to come around and didn't seem to hate it so much. It was really interesting to get Sandra's perspective on that and why she thought such things were going on. We've said each time that we've done this that we want to try really hard to respect everybody's time. And it's also good to leave us all wanting a little bit more. We've had no trouble filling up our hour. And usually when we get to this moment, we think we could easily talk for another 40 minutes. There's lots of content here. So what we want to encourage everyone to do is to suggest topics, suggest presenters. And these presenters do not need any credentials of any sort. What we need are just nice ideas, and we're looking for people to share their experience. And so if you or someone you know has some bit of experience that you think would be useful, our general format is share for 5 minutes, and then we'll take about 5 minutes to talk. We'll do a couple of those, and then we'll open it up for a little bit longer talk at the end. One of the things that I would have loved more time to talk about was that idea of making ready the home teaching space, and so maybe I'll put that a little bit on the agenda for the next time that we talk, because I think that is critical, and yet largely I'm sure overlooked. We will stick around, or I'm able to stick around easy for another 10 minutes or so. So if anybody wants to, stay on.
Christine has a hand raised.
Great. So we'll stick around, but if anybody needs to go, we understand. Christine?
Oh yeah. No, I just wanted to say that that I saw the video because I'm in Italy, so it was 3 o'clock in the morning, but I saw about Heather Gell, and it was so interesting that about, because I have a very old book, I think it was the only one that could be found anymore, by Ann Driver, called Music and Movement.
Yep.
And it was a very old used book. And I thought it was so interesting because she does not mention Jacques Dalcroze once. She does not mention him at all. And so I was wondering whether they had this falling out because she didn't mention him, or it was the other way around, that she didn't mention him because they had this falling out. But it was interesting because it's, she says very interesting things about doing Eurythmics just for boys. She has all these ideas of, doing farm work and stuff like that, the movement, showing like the kinds of jobs that boys had in those days. Yeah, but it was interesting that I always wondered why she never mentioned him, and then when they had the discussion about Heather Gell the other time, I said, that must be why. So
I'm sure there's something there.
Can I come in on that, Stephen? Because I know someone who knew Ann Driver herself, and I have that book, and I wondered the same thing. She said it was partly that, as Sandra Nash explained, she didn't present it in a very diplomatic way, and Dalcroze wanted people to be present and make it visual. But also, she then, I think later on, although her sister was a very famous Dalcroze teacher, she thought he was a bit dogmatic. And so, and she wasn't supposed to use his name. She was, because she had basically not followed his instructions.
I see.
So she was not supposed to, and then in fact she later said he was a bit dogmatic. And so it's pure Dalcroze if you read her book.
Yes, in fact it is. Yes, it's a beautiful little book.
But she both, I think it was by mutual consent, she didn't use his name, which is a pity for us because it was widely known throughout the UK, and people didn't associate the name Dalcroze or therefore investigate further. But yeah, so it's such a shame.
Thank you.
For
That's
us.
interesting. I always wondered about that. Yeah.
Yeah, it was the person who told me about that was Ruth Stewart, who's a very famous teacher and academic of Dalcroze in Britain. I've lost touch with her now, but perhaps someone else knows if she's still with us or not.
Selma?
I wrote about Ann Driver in a chapter of my doctoral dissertation, and did a lot of work on the broadcasting background. and listened to her broadcasts that were archived. It was not entirely her choice. She worked for the British Broadcasting Corporation, and so they also had a part of the decision about how they would name what they were giving. So the branding that she used really was music and movement.
Right.
And then as Sandra said, Jill used the term music through movement. I think that's what she said last week.
That's right. Very
it was
good.
very political.
Right.
Joy has something to say.
Yeah, the name Dalcroze is very political. Like, apparently, so I've heard like Geneva has like copyrighted Dalcroze. So if I actually need to change the title of my PhD from a Dalcroze inspired approach, I think
You do not. No, you're quite welcome to use that name in the title of your book and the title of your dissertation. Those conversations are primarily about teacher training and how people and the names of courses. And so they're asking for people who are naming courses to be Dalcroze Eurythmics. I believe that the academic writing side is a different discussion. Now, if you were to try to misname it somehow and, you know, call something that isn't referring to that they might have an issue. But I think my impression is that they would be quite pleased for there to be another doctoral dissertation that was named something involving Dalcroze or Dalcroze Eurythmics.
Okay, that's great to know. Thanks, because I heard differently that Geneva's been really strict about the Dalcroze name.
Yeah, they are. They're definitely trying to get more of a handle on it. But I think, again, and maybe Francoise knows better than me, but my understanding is that it's much more about how people are representing the work. That is, if you're naming something Dalcroze that is not, or if you're naming something Dalcroze without the credentials to name a thing. But what you're doing is academic citing. And so as long as you cite appropriately, then you should be, you know, plenty safe to write about it. Any other questions or comments for the day? I think we're about at the point where we try to close it up.
I just will quickly jump in and say, Manuel, who presented at our very first one, invited me to a Spanish-speaking meeting of music teachers, and I just want to say hi to Isabel Santillana, who joined us from that meeting. So I had to like pull out my Spanish, and I was like, "Can I talk about Dalcroze in Spanish? I don't know. Let's see." So, anyways, it was like a fabulous meeting, and it's not necessarily Dalcroze teachers; it's just music teachers working all over Latin America, and learned lots of fabulous ideas, and there's something I want to share in the resources doc when I get around to it, just resources that they shared. So welcome to Isabel.
Welcome. Well, everyone, we're going to leave you wanting more. I hope that you'll spread the word, and we are back on June 1. We will send out the note, and if you know of other people who would like to be on the list, send their emails over.
At what time? What time?
It'll be, let me just double check.
I believe
it's June 1st at 9 p.m. Eastern. Who asked that?
Yeah, it's the late night virtual Dalcroze meetup late night version. We're going.
So our European friends will be sleeping. We're very sorry, but the next one will be, you'll be awake. June 15th.
and the hope is to get the Malaysian and Australian and Japanese cohort to be able to chime in. So.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you,
Thank
everybody.
you, everyone.
Nice to see you all.
Bye.
Bye.